spoiler race. If you have never seen this race before, the runners were given the full spoiler log 15 minutes before the race started, and they used that time to route their ideal path through the seed. Both runners starting at Link's house, grabbing the heart container from there. However, oneup chose to save and quit to the sanctuary, and shadyforce is grabbing a sign and going towards the uncle rescue.
Looks like he's setting himself up for a quick early tree pull there. Ooh, bombs. That's always nice. And that's another thing about this spoiler log. They know what the tree pulls are, and they know what the stun prize is. They also know what all the bush crabs and stuff are, so they have all the information they need to get everything they need early.
Yep, so that Tier 1 stun prize was excellent. Oneup on their way to the Lost Woods. And looks like they're going to grab something from the crab. Not sure if maybe they wanted the last crab drop there. I think that, but oh! Moon Pearl at the mushroom spot. That's fantastic. Always nice to see an early Moon Pearl. Oh, of course, he wanted to kill the crab so he could set up his Tier 1 stun prize. Shadyforce at Sarashala. So we already see early divergence, grabbing a heart container and the flippers.
Yeah, we might see that a lot this seed. There's a lot of stuff that's all over the place, so it looks like this might be a seed where we have a lot of divergence and have to kind of guess who's ahead until they come together towards it.
Mm-hmm. Spoiler seeds tend to be quite execution heavy. Runners have to choose how many safeties they're going to pick up. And if they think they might be behind, they might forego that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful tightrope walk between do I have enough safeties to survive versus am I taking too many safeties to waste too much?
Silvers are nice and accessible in blindside, as well as a nice cash drop in the back with a couple of heart pieces. Shadyforce doing a quick dip into a pendant Eastern for a glove upgrade. One of the other things in the spoiler log is, of course, what the dungeon prizes are, so the runners know right away which are the pendants, which are the not, and, ooh, hookshot. Hookshot's a very nice early item, helps with movement around the seed.
I love how oneup opened up that the back of Kakariko well there out of habit and then just didn't do anything with it. He was like, oh, wait, there's nothing here. Never.
Muscle memory is a heck of a thing. Shadyforce was... that's some nice knowledge, knowing that there's a 50-50 bomb drop under that rock, while oneup picks the other pair of gloves from the chicken hut. So we know where our Dark World Axis is. It's Titan's Mitts, quite early in Sphere 1.
I'm just thankful it's not Aghanim.
Shady picking up their Moon Pearl.
I'll tell you what we haven't seen early. In most of these spoiler races, you get some early swords, and we have yet to see a single.
Yeah, no sword, no weapon of any kind. Hookshot certainly useful for moving and making things a bit safer. And yes, the cursor sprite that Shadyforce is using is a little bit disconcerting if you've got your mouse on the screen.
If you think that's bad, you ought to try bomb jumping with it.
I can't do bomb jumps in the best of times, but apparently if you use the shadow, it's not so bad.
I wouldn't even know. The only bomb jump I can do is across Paradox Cave, and even that's only right about 50% of the...
Same. oneup picking up their flippers, an extra heart container, imagine, then mirroring Shady's steps and getting their glove, their other glove. So we should see Titan's Mitts from both players at about the same time. However, Shadyforce will be much closer to a Titan's Mitt portal than oneup will be when they grab them.
Yeah, it's the very, very, very little nuances like that that end up adding up in the end.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully there's nothing else in Eastern that is required, because double dipping a pendant dungeon is never fun. Like, for instance, if the Titan's Mitts lead to that bow.
Titan's Mitts leading to the bow, and then Armos having something important, that would be evil.
Indeed. And shadyforce is making their way right to that portal, while oneup had to do a save and quit. Did a quick mistake with saving and quit into Link's house, demonstrating some nice hookshot movement.
That's another thing we normally see early when we can is the boots, so I wonder if those are hidden a little farther in this scene.
Runners love early boots. Oh no! Shadyforce taking an overworld death. That is unfortunate. Which will put oneup slightly ahead, assuming he can make through the very dangerous Village of Outcasts on 6 hearts and green mail.
Yeah, that shows you the definite disadvantage of going into the Dark World with 6 hearts green mail and no real weapon to speak of.
Nope. They do both have the hookshot, so I'm a little bit surprised shadyforce didn't choose to stun those guards.
oneup made the same choice, so I couldn't tell you.
Going straight into the brewery. And there's those lovely patent red leather boots.
And at about 7 minutes in, the speed walking has stopped and the speed running can begin.
Hooray! Thieves' Town is a pendant, so that's going to feel nice. So hopefully there's nothing else in Village of Outcasts, and if all they needed to do was grab the boots, that's going to be a nice chunk of the map disappeared.
It really will. Normally Kakariko has a little more in it than the couple of items that we saw, but it allows the runners to go through it more quickly, so I guess they don't really mind.
oneup choosing to skip the bonk rocks on their way past them. I'm assuming that means that there's nothing useful in there. And using a nice combination of hookshot and dust to navigate their way through the dark maze.
It's definitely a lot more difficult without a sword, but it's manageable.
This one isn't too bad. There's not a lot of enemies in your way and bumping you around, so as long as you know the route, it's probably one of the easiest ones to do.
Oh, hold on, you may have
shadyforce, on the other
spoken
hand,
too soon there.
yeah, shadyforce looked like he was going to go past it, then changed his mind. Ooh, for the fire rod.
Well, that's a requirement, but it's not necessarily an early requirement, so...
It's not. The exception would be, it looks like both of them are going up Death Mountain. If there's something fire-locked in Tower of Hera that's required, oneup might be kicking himself for that.
That's very fair. It's also assuming the lamp isn't hidden up here somewhere.
That's true. oneup forgoing Paradox Cave and going straight to Super Bunny, so it's a bit unusual that all 7 chests not having anything. Unless, of course, maybe something like the mirrors in Super Bunny or Hookshot Cave.
Most definitely. I think most of the races I've seen that were spoiler-based races, Paradox Cave, has been absolutely loaded, so I was kind of surprised.
Getting that nice magic refill and not choosing to open up either of the chests. That's an interesting choice. I guess there's nothing useful in there, but they're not really that much time waste either.
Seems like what we want might be here in Hookshot Cave.
Nice heart refill from the heart piece. Hey, guess what, Hammer Bro?
He found me!
That's right! I was going to make the hammer time joke, but that's actually much better.
I try to avoid that joke when I at all can.
That's more than fair. So one up is going back across.
I would assume to head into Hera at this point.
That seems likely. We would have needed some kind of weapon for Hera, but no, he's heading into Paradox Cave.
Looks like we may have spoken too soon on Paradox Cave not having anything.
Yeah, I find this routing a little bit interesting, that both of our runners did it. I'm sure they had their reasons for it, but I think I would have done Paradox Cave first and then jumped down and did the portal. But wound up deciding to grab a bottle and shadyforce skipping that.
I wonder if that's just a safety preference, as there's nothing in there, or maybe Sick Kid has something.
Could be, and there's one up to go and grab his fire rod. Now shadyforce is going back to Eastern. Oh no, he's going to the portal. Well, one up is... Oh, I think we've got a little bit of confusion. When you only have 15 minutes to route and plan out your seeds, sometimes you gotta make choices on the fly, and I think shadyforce might have changed his mind about what he wanted to do.
May have forgotten he didn't have the bow.
That could have been very likely. And yeah, it looks like one up is grabbing a safety potion that he needed that bottle for.
Makes sense. Grabbing a green there with all that money, it makes me think that, I don't know, maybe he might need it for an upcoming boss.
Yeah, whenever I think potions, I think, well, we have flippers, we have fire rod, we have Titan's mitts. Could pendant cold stare have something?
That's not nice. Don't speak of things like that.
That is very not nice. Okay, they're both making their way to portal number 5, it looks like. shadyforce was originally going there, changed his mind, and going back there. Or, oh, that's a good point from Zelda Dasan in chat. They might be choosing to potion glitch their way into pod. That would probably suggest some item they're grabbing in pod is locking the bow, which would make a required double dip pod, which is extremely unfortunate.
That's fair. They'd still have to double dip it, though, although the second dip would be much faster with everything cleared out.
Mm-hmm. Especially if there's nothing particularly useful on the bow lock side, if there's just a couple of keys. Go in there, do your potion glitch, grab your extra keys, and then grab your required item. And I think shadyforce is regretting his choices at this moment.
It certainly does seem that way.
Maybe he mistyped something. So we have a key, so pod is not necessarily bow locked. It will depend on the rest of the keys in the front half of the dungeon.
It will also depend upon how comfortable one-up is with the hammer yump.
shadyforce, you don't have the flute. I'm sorry. And yeah, I think that he's reviewing his route and maybe he realized he made a grave error. Maybe he mistook a pendant for a crystal or mismarked where one of the chests is.
That's vaguely possible, but he's back on Death Mountain. I wonder if he's going to go get that bottle or is going somewhere else.
One-Up doing a fairly good execution of the potion glitch, which is some absolute magic using the super tiles, in which you unstick the camera, and the game doesn't actually care if the mimics are dead as long as they're not on screen.
They created this game much like a 2-year-old. It doesn't exactly have object permanence. If it can't see it, it doesn't exist.
So only keys on the bow lock side, so I'm a little bit confused. Oh, and there's the book in Super Bunny Cave. One-Up chose not to grab that. And, yeah, I'm a little bit confused by One-Up's choice of doing a potion glitch, since there was only keys in pod, in both lock side of pod, and we know we're gonna have to come back with a bow at some point. But there's the mirror, which is a fantastic find.
Honestly, it might be a case of One-Up making a mistake when reading the spoiler log. I know a lot of those chests in the dungeons aren't terribly clearly named, especially if you're not overly familiar with NMG names.
But shadyforce, grabbing that book from Super Bunny Cave, is going right to desert. This is a crystal, this is fully completable. It's always nice to be able to partner this with Misery Mire, but for all we know, the flute could be here in desert.
That is very possible, and if the flute is here in desert, that would mean the only way into desert is through the book that he just picked up.
That's right. But he's skipping all the chests, so there must be something critical over on Desert Ledge, while One-Up is checking Cave South of Grove. Ooh, a
There
sword.
we go.
And ooh, a flute.
Simultaneous wonderful grabs there. At 17 and change minutes in, we finally have our first stinking sword.
That's rude even in a non-spoiler scene. But I feel like One-Up has a bit of an advantage now, even considering shadyforce's slight delay. Having that flute and having that mirror is really fantastic. So he will be able to, assuming, there's no Bombos maybe in desert. Well, no, even if Bombos is in desert, he'll be able to combo Desert and Mire at that point.
That's another interesting thing. Where is our Quake medallion?
It's one of those things that can be pretty much anywhere except in Mire or Turtle Rock. Lots of places for it. One-Up chose to get the validation arrow from the Hype Cave NPC and then the blue mail from the back, which is super nice.
Well, with the validation arrow picked up, that's basically time for him, so we can call the race now.
And funnily enough, that's the only arrow he has?
It is, after all, the arrow of destiny.
shadyforce got their sword, got their fire rod, heading straight to the back of Skullwoods.
There seems to be something back here that's bugging him.
And it looks like One-Up is going into Swamp. The only weapon he has is the hammer, and Hammer Argus.
Hammer anything, honestly.
The D! Oh. Okay, so that's another interesting point. Skullwoods is a crystal. He grabs the bow and then immediately nopes out.
That is interesting. I don't know that I would be comfortable doing Mothula with 7 hearts, Fire Rod, and Hammer, but I'm kind of surprised that he didn't choose to.
And now he's going back to pod. He's got everything he needs to full clear it. I'm assuming he has no issues with dark rooms. He'll get his mirror. I don't believe we saw the big key when OneUp was in pod.
I don't recall seeing it now.
And OneUp is going straight to the back of swamp.
Looks like this might be a required menu boss coming up.
That feels bad.
It also means there's really no backup strat for the second phase of Argus. If Argus is bouncing around and you don't have a sword to spin, you better either hit him with those fire rod shots or get your hammer ready.
Mm-hmm. Really, at 20 minutes in and no crystals, that's quite... Oh, there's a sword. Oh, that makes it a bit easier. And good point from and the Cane of Samaria. What is that thing? There's always a sword in Swamp Palace?
I think I've heard that once or twice.
But this will be really nice for Shady when he does go into Swamp, that he will have Master Sword for Argus. So I think picking up that book probably saved a little bit of time, even though he needed to do an extra climb up the mountain, which OneUp did anyway to grab that bottle.
I'm honestly more concerned about the couple of minutes that he spent hesitating over his route.
Definitely something that we'll have to keep in mind for the interview later. You know, with hindsight, I'm not sure right now what's the best solution. I mean, spin slashes certainly work on Argus. It's slow. And if you don't have great menu times, this is probably easier than doing the menu boss.
Yeah, he doesn't have Boomerang, which makes menuing a little more ugly. And there we go. Argus is down, and that is our first crystal of the game.
First crystal at 22 minutes. And yeah, Flappity, Fire Rod Argus is actually NMG strat, since you never get the silver arrows.
Yep, NMG strats is usually 2 fire rods to the face and then a tempered sword spin to finish him off in one go round.
Yes.
Shady needs to be careful here.
He never picked up that K to Burna from Hookshot Cave. But there's 3 hearts in this room, that's fine.
Yeah, those hard hat beetles were out for blood, though.
Another unusual thing at 23 minutes into the seed, let's go do escape.
There's clearly something back here. I don't blame him for waiting until he had the boots.
Yep, lots of nice straight hallways. Escape is much more fun with the boots. Really, everything is more fun with the boots.
I think a pen gator would have a blast going up and down Hyrule Castle.
Maybe Hyrule Castle on ice?
Or just on Randomizer.
Shadyforce going through the back of pod. Is he going to use that fire rod for the Dark Turtles?
I would assume so. The man's sane, isn't he?
Be a hero. I got the first couple. All but one. That was actually quite nice, Dark Turtles.
That was. He does it in the dark better than I do it with all the lights on.
Same? And there is the Quake Medallion in Zelda's cell, which will be required for both Misery Mile and Turtle Rock. So Shadyforce did the Dark Turtles really easy, and then the straight line of the Double Turtles had a little bit of difficulty with.
He's basically doing a one-hit KO Helmasaur. And of course the fireballs come out, just to make it interesting.
But with silver arrows and a bow, easy peasy. And Shadyforce gets their first crystal at 26 minutes. oneup activated their flute, and looks like they're going to head back to Skullwoods to grab their bow. And do you think that they're gonna finish off Mothula with their fighter sword?
I would assume so. I wouldn't think that anyone would willingly go into a double dip with Skull Woods. It's not a long dungeon, but it's not quick to get to, no matter what you have in your back pocket.
But on the other hand, Shadyforce seems to have decided to do that. On the other hand, though, Shadyforce did go in there with green mail, and oneup does have the blue mail.
Also has significantly more hearts. And by significantly more, I mean one more, because I'm clearly not good at counting.
It's, more than 10%. 10% greater hearts. By now.
You'd make a wonderful salesperson.
Shadyforce grabbing their flute, and it does appear that oneup is going straight to the back for Mothula, and then will likely grab the bow immediately afterwards.
Yeah, bow doesn't do any damage to Mothula anyways, at least not that I'm aware of, so he's not missing anything there.
Shadyforce choosing not to grab the blue mail out of Hype Cave at this time, but is also activating their flute.
And the dance of Mothula continues. Good luck.
Yep, oneup is doing some nice spike dodging and timing his fire rod shots and sword spins so that Mothula is away from the spikes.
Taking some damage there, he's got to be careful.
So Shadyforce did not grab their Quake Medallion from Zelda's cell, and did flute to Mire, and is grabbing something from Checkerboard Cave.
oneup just trying to survive with that fighter sword and half a heart. Whew! That was close.
Clutch! Clutch! Clutch gets their second crystal. Shadyforce gets their Master Sword. Folks, if you weren't holding your breath during that Mothula flight, make sure you're still breathing.
And whether you were holding your breath or not, make sure that you give both of our runners a follow, because that's not something I could have done.
Alright, Shadyforce taking this portal again, with a Master Sword in hand. Looks like they're gonna go grab their blue mail, and do Swamp, which means they'll be on Tempered Sword, which will absolutely make Argus faster, and will probably make Mothula faster as well.
Tempered Sword makes everything faster.
One-Up grabbing their bow and also fluting to Mire. Now they do have Quake and the Mirror. They'll be grabbing Master Sword from Checkerboard Cave, I imagine. No reason that they can't clear out Mire and Desert right now.
Wonderful routing decision, that.
300 rupees is a curious pickup. We are still looking for the Ice Rod for Turtle Rock. Neither of the other runners have been going out of their way to get money, though.
Zora with Ice Rod. That's terrible.
Especially if nothing else is in that location. Nothing on the ledge, nothing in Waterfall Ferry.
I mean, there's not really a whole lot we're missing at this point. The most useful thing I think we could have left, other than a couple of nice safeties, would be a heart container.
Yep.
Or maybe red mail, although most people of this caliber say that red mail's for cowards. I'm happily a coward.
Me too. And yeah, he is going to go and dive into Mire. If it's your first time seeing this, this is a round of 32 match in our spoiler race. This is game 1 between shadyforce and oneup. shadyforce was seed number 12, oneup was seed number 21. The way this works is prior to the match, the runners have 15 minutes with the spoiler log that gives all of the chests, the dungeon prizes, the stun drops, the teardrops, anything they could need to get the 7 crystals required to defeat Ganon. They use that time to plot out their route, decide what safeties they're going to pick up, and determine what is the best way through this seed.
OneUp had an interesting use of Quake there. I think it was unintentional.
I think so too.
There is one major difference between the qualifiers that they already did to get here and the current races, and that's that the qualifiers, because this was a spoiler log, everyone decided that it would be best just to give everyone the logs indefinitely, so you could practice the 3 seeds and have the 3 seeds and take as long as you needed. So this is a little different, although people have practiced doing the 15 minutes. I'm sure it's slightly different than the qualifiers.
shadyforce picks up their Tempered Sword and Samaria, and we had a God Mire. One of the games I like to play is looking at a spoiler seed and deciding if it would be more fun to race blind or not. I'm pretty not sure about this. I think this is a pretty good mix. There's some seeds that are going to be absolutely awful to race blind, and some that only make sense in spoiler logs. But this one, I think it would work pretty well either way.
I think I'm going to hold judgment until I see where that Ice Rod ends up.
And yeah, shadyforce having a considerably faster Argus gets their 2nd crystal. While oneup makes their way through the Mire Dark Rooms, and it looks like they set up Dark Spooky, but not quite right, so going for the vanilla strats instead.
That's a gutsy technique.
Hydropower, I would agree with that assumption that the lamp must be in a really dumb place. It seems like for many of these spoiler seeds, the lamp is in a really dumb place.
I blame Synac for that.
That seems fair. Zinak is one of the mods and admins for this tournament and made a fantastic bot to roll these seeds, and the bot sometimes rolls some interesting seeds.
One
Oh
up ran
no,
out of arrows there.
has to use bomb strats on Vitreous. Personally, I probably would have gone Burna.
Not a whole lot of magic for that.
No, but you can get a couple of swings in anyway.
I don't think I've ever tried Burna Vitreous, so...
Okay, Vitreous is absolutely better, but you use what tools you have.
And One Up has completed their serving of eyeball gelato.
Delicious? But more importantly, they get their third crystal.
I don't know, One Up might have wanted a snack.
Yeah, Zelda does on bringing up a good point that you can't spin with Burna, but you could do the sword dashes. And with Tempered, you might be alright. I'm really not sure what the more optimal strat would be in that case.
Alright, and with the fact that Shady just picked up his Quake Medallion, I think we are just Ice Rod away from Go Mode.
That seems like the case, and I would say that One Up has a pretty sizable lead at this point, but anything can happen.
Yeah, with these being shorter races, anything that's close to a minute is just heightened. So the difference between 50 minutes and 51 minutes is just massive and can very easily be overtaken in a short race.
I mean, we always joke in regular races about Ganon falls, but when you're feeling the pressure, these runners, since it is a spoiler race, they can watch the restream, they can watch their runner stream, they know exactly how far their opponent is behind. And if you might take a few extra risks, and anything can happen.
Alright, both players making quick works of their relative dungeons here.
Tempered Sword Mothula should not be an issue. But you never know Mothula. Sometimes he just likes to hug those spikes.
If he stayed up there for another 5 or 10 seconds, I was going to call commentator's curse on you.
But he did not, and Shadyforce gets their third crystal. And yes, runners are not bound by the usual restrictions of having to race in a bubble. They can see their opponent's stream, they can hang out here and chat, they can look at the commentary stream.
One Up quickly proved there that Landmos are part werewolf as they all go down to a single silver arrow.
And One Up fluting to 8. They don't quite have money for Zora, but they're skipping that portal anyway. So fun fact, when you grab a arrow or bomb upgrade from this Waterfall of Wishing, it actually refills all your arrows.
After the bomb debacle with Vitreous, I imagine that was on the forefront of One Up's mind.
But we are in our way into Green Pendant Ice Palace.
Dang it, what does Sahasrara have now?
Ice Rod?
That terrible, miserable old man.
I mean, realistically, that's all we really need, since OneUp's already taken care of the most difficult dark rooms. Not in the first chest, so wherever we're finding, if it's on Cold Stair or Great Pendant, it is deeper into Ice Palace.
Of course it is. You can't just dip a single chest in Ice Palace and get out. That's not the way Ice Palace works, ever.
I suppose the one thankful thing that we can say is that since they had the mirror and the bow after they completed pod, well, actually, OneUp has not completed pod. Shadyforce did. He did not choose the mirror and complete Eastern, so we're probably not looking at a Pid Seed.
No, I think that would be unlikely at this point, especially since they both walked by Thieves Town.
They did not have a weapon to kill blind, though, at that time.
You know, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. Alright, how about Ped Powder into Ice Rod? Sound good to you? Sounds good to me.
Spoiler logs are not immediately available for chat, just to prevent runners from getting more explicit help than just hearing, commentary. But yes, they are made public after a few days. You can join the Discord and find out where those are located.
Or you could be like me, join the Discord anyways, and still have no idea where they're located.
There's our Ice Rod, and at 41 minutes 44 seconds, OneUp is in go mode. Not actually too bad. That could have been much worse. That could have been Iced Tea, that could have been Cold Stair, Sahasrahla. For having to dip a Pendant Ice Palace, that's okay.
It's still terrible as far as I'm concerned. Any dip into Ice Palace is terrible.
Yup. Shadyforce makes some eyeball kebabs, gets their big 20 and their 4th crystal.
I might have to use that one later. I like that. Eyeball kebab.
Only relevant when you defeat Vitreous with the bow. The funny thing is, Flappity, is that I do actually know the Ice Palace bomb jump. I just can't navigate the conveyor room before that room without dying several times. Shadyforce just missing by a pixel the area you need to bonk against the wall for.
Isn't that how that normally works? I swear those torches just get a little skinnier every time you dash by.
So I believe Landmolus had another heart container, which brought OneUp to their 10. So I think Shadyforce might be a single heart container behind.
Well, right now they're sitting at 8. So unless there's one on Landmo, which I don't recall there being, but
there was one on Landmo.
That shows you what my memory's good for.
Which was fun because that meant that both of the desert prizes were heart containers. OneUp made their way through Dark Turtles, going through the hallway and on their Helmasaur fight.
Had significantly less trouble with the turtle hallway than shadyforce did.
You know what? Sometimes those turtles, they do turtle things and all of your hearts disappear. I don't know. It's just turtle things.
As an official Hammer Bro, I am at least somewhat familiar with vague turtle things.
Shadyforce gets their crystal from Landmo. Oneup gets their crystal from Helmasaur. And I believe that they are both on their way now to Turtle Rock. I might have been premature in calling a lead for Oneup early. Oh no, that's right. Shadyforce still needs to grab their Ice Rod.
From Ice Palace, how fitting.
I think Fire Rod and Ice Palace tends to be much more fitting.
No, that's torture, because bombos can be anywhere.
Torture or entertainment?
Since no one watches the races that I do, it's just torture. I'll leave you to the evil laugh. Mine's a bit too loud to do into a microphone.
Oneup climbing their way to Death Mountain. They make their second climb up well, technically kind of third climb up Death Mountain. I'm not sure. We've been up here a couple of times.
Yeah, this was not a polite seed for Death Mountain climbs, that's for sure.
The one nice thing, and I'm not sure exactly how much time it saves, is that because of that Ice Rod location, the Ice Palace bomb jump is absolutely not required.
That's fair, I hadn't even thought about that.
Got a lovely key in the compass chest. Oneup heading over to the Fire Rod rooms.
And getting Samaria trolled.
That's one of my favorite tricks.
Getting Samaria trolled or the hook shot to torch?
Getting Samaria trolled. But by trick, I mean, haha, I tricked myself and I fell into a pit.
Oh, that's a trick for you? That's just daily life for me.
Flappy, Hammer and Ice Palace is even worse than Fire Rod and Ice Palace. I will have none of that discussion here.
I think Flappity's referring to Hammer as in me, because you said that the bomb jump wasn't required, and he knows I cannot do a bomb jump.
Fair.
Hey look,
Ooh.
it's Powder.
Powder's nice. Powder is absolutely fantastic for going up Ganon's tower.
Powder's even better for getting the heck out of Chain Chomp room.
Yep. Some lovely bubbles to anti-powder here. Now, can we steal the key, or is the big key vanilla? Looks like something's important. Vanilla Big Key, Turtle Rock.
Since you don't have to go mode Turtle Rock, we're going to have you go mode Turtle Rock. And by go mode, I mean check everything anyways.
I would say that OneUp has about a 2-minute advantage here. Definitely not insurmountable, but they also have that extra heart container. I would say that Shady's execution is slightly better, but it's really hard to call at this point.
It is. We will see in a minute here if OneUp is going to get lucky with a key in the boomerang roller room, I guess, for lack of a better name for it, or if there's going to have to be a journey down the wonderful, wonderful hallway of heck.
OneUp is skipping that crystal roller room entirely, so I'm going to take that to mean that we have to do a laser bridge. And I have to agree, Dimensive, if Shady, felt a little bit more certain in their routing about trying to avoid the double dip of pod, which we assume is what he was doing, we'll have to find out later.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment for him where indecision probably cost him more time than just making a decision quickly would have.
I think probably his decision to not double dip pod was better, but the fact that he was hesitating over it probably cost him more time. Because I think ultimately, yeah, there was no required double dips here. It was just one of those things that in order to get the bow from pod, you could get the mirror, and the mirror was locking 2 swords.
Yes, it was definitely not ideal, but I don't think a double dip was actually required.
If you felt comfortable with Hammer and Fighter Sword Mothula or Hammer and Fighter Sword Argus, yeah, you probably could have avoided all the double dips.
Very nice Trinex kill.
Absolutely. Crystal number 6 for OneUp. And hopefully Hera is nice and does not have the big key vanilla.
I mean, they're, what, 53 minutes in? A coffee break might be in order.
Yeah, that's true.
The one really cool thing about these spoiler races is that there have been a lot of instances where Hera is the last crystal they complete, which is something you almost never see in a blind race because you usually complete it the first time you're up here just because it might have something.
Shadyforce choosing to get that burrito map out of the crystal roller room. Maybe he needed a snack.
It would go well with the coffee break that I guess isn't required, unfortunately, so.
Oh, nice. Hera is God mode.
We'll see about how Moldorm acts before we call it anything other than troll mode.
Ah, tempered sword. I'm sure it's fine.
I'm pretty sure those were someone's famous last words.
No other safeties needed to be grabbed. OneUp is heading straight for the boss. Oh, another just just off by a pixel for that dash through the bumper.
Hera will always find a way to troll.
Shady was going for the quick behind the Trinex strats, but one of his ice rod shots got away from him. But looks like he's going to manage to take out the ice head before the ice gets on the floor. And see? No issues with Trolldorm. Gets his crystal number 7, and it's going to be a quick mirror transition into Ganon's tower. Since it is a spoiler rod race, we're not doing the big key guessing game, but go ahead and put your predictions in as to which chest or which room the big key might be in. Do you have any thoughts, Hammerbro?
I have no idea. Let's go with tile room, just because it'd be funny. How about you?
I love vanilla. I think it's very underrated, so I would love to see a vanilla big key in any of those 3 chests.
That's fair. I think in this instance, my big key placement would be faster than yours.
Yep. One up going left.
Well, there goes my guess.
Oh, not necessarily.
Skipping a key there, that's interesting.
You do only need to climb the tower with 1 key. One of the races I commentated earlier this week, one of the runners climbed without a key, which was very unfortunate. Oh, and there's a 2nd key right there, and a 3rd key. Just getting an extra one for safety, I guess. Two keys is all you need, but a nice early key in the Stealthos room.
I vote that we change that room name to the key room.
Tempered swords, silver arrows, blue mail, and powder. The gauntlet shouldn't be too difficult for these runners. I think the question will be Ganon at this point.
As long as the gauntlet doesn't get out of hand. There's a couple of rooms that can go south quickly, but outside of something of that nature happening, I think we'll be okay here.
Probably on pace for about a 105, maybe a 107. Shadyforce taking down their Moldorm, getting their crystal number 7. And yes, Billy Mills, we do get the spoiler log, but it's up to us to decide how we want to commentate these things. Sometimes it's just nice to be surprised. Xiaopan, if you are referring to the seed in general, it seemed like Shadyforce was having some second thoughts about their routing and paused for maybe about a minute or 2 while they were trying to decide, and with that, one up took the lead.
Yeah, there were definitely some second and, dare I say, third thoughts about going into pod or not going into pod, and I think ultimately the indecision was what gave one up the lead.
Mm-hmm. And really it came down to the fact that the mirror was in pod and the bow was in Skull Woods. So you had to make the choice, and there were 2 swords locked behind the mirror. Really, 3 swords locked behind the mirror if you didn't get the book. There was a sword on Desert Ledge, 1 in Swamp, and 1 in Cave south of Grove.
And since there's one here in Ganon's Tower as well, this was just not an early sword sort of seed.
Mm-hmm. So you had to make the choice. Do you grab the early mirror from pod and double dip back with some extra swords and the bow, or do you grab the book from Super Buddy Cave and then grab a sword from Desert Ledge and do a fighter sword Mothula after grabbing the bow? which Shady Force kind of did a combination of the two. He did grab the book from Super Bunny Cave, got the early book, but then dipped out of Skullwoods after grabbing that bow.
Yeah, that probably led to some of this time difference as well, because it's not easy, nor is it quick to get back to Skullwoods.
Nope. And it was one of those instances too, since our Dark World access was the mitts, the boots led to the Fire Rod and Bonk Rock, so you had to go there twice anyway, since the boots were in Village of Outcasts. No issues with Moldorm 2. One-Up is on their way to the Agonometry fight.
I don't think I've ever heard it called that. That's a very clever little nickname.
It was one of those times when I was trying to be clever for trigonometry and agonim, and I just made a lovely portmanteau.
Well, it worked out, so congratulations on your cleverness.
It was completely by accident.
See, now you have to go and ruin it. You don't have to tell chat that.
Chat's my friend. I gotta tell him everything. But speaking of agonometry, not some great patterns. But Agonim is down, and One-Up is off to face the Big Pig.
Shady Force had a little difficulty with that opening salvo by land mode 2, but he did manage to bring it back pretty quickly.
Had a nice clean Wizrobe 1 and 2 on their way through the gauntlet. One-Up drops into Ganon. What does Ganon have to say today? Oh, just some bragging.
That's about right.
Seriously, stop monologuing.
Alright, and we have the Cane of Lag strats.
Definitely helps save some health. Not the best, but it saves a little bit.
Hold on to your frames, people.
But with that, we're on to Phase 3. Some nice teleports from, I say that, Commentator's Curse. I was about to say, not very many teleports. Arrows in the light world? Yeah, maybe Blind isn't the best person to, like, hide your arrows.
Whew, triple, and he is down.
That was a fantastic triple.
One-Up was definitely afraid of that bridge there for a minute. There was some hesitation.
And get your GGs into chat as One-Up crosses the bridge and finishes with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 14 seconds. GG.
That was a very nice time considering the convoluted routing that this seed had.
And just as that, Shady Force takes down Agonim. Is on their way to their Ganon fight. Yeah, it looks like about 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes difference.
Definitely a close race.
So again, this is a best of 3, so One-Up has their first win, but I believe that they have a match scheduled for tomorrow. A restream channel, I believe, to be determined. I will check that in a moment.
Yep, you are correct. It appears to be their next race is going to be 3 o'clock p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Time, and the channel has yet to be determined. So we'll find out when we find out, I suppose.
And Shadyforce gets their 4 silver arrows into Ganon. Get your GGs in chat for them. And they are finished with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 37 seconds. So GG Shadyforce. We will try to get both runners in here at the same time for an interview. And we are joined by both oneup and Shadyforce. GG to you both.
Thanks, GG to Shady.
GG, oneup.
So, your thoughts on that seed?
Yeah, I just want to say up front, I'm sorry for having to try to figure out what in the world I was doing at some points during that seed. Yeah, there were definitely a couple of routing mistakes I made up front, but I think somehow I managed to luck into making them work out somehow.
Yeah, I don't think it was an easy seed to route. Shady, we wanted to ask you your thoughts on pod and to go in or not to go in.
Yeah, I actually made a huge routing mistake. So obviously the bow is in Skullwoods, but it's locked behind a sword, right? Oh my god, it's not even locked behind the sword. I'm just realizing that now. It's locked behind a fire rod, but it's not locked behind a sword, so I could have picked it up earlier. That was my plan, and then I thought I couldn't do it because it was in the back of Skull, so I thought I couldn't get it without a sword. So I went to pod, but then I forgot when I'm in pod, it's actually bow locked, so I can't get... Oh, I've messed this up so badly. That was so funny.
We were thought that, oh, you grabbed the bow, but you didn't want to fight Mothula with just the fighter sword.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I might have clutched out a Mothula kill, but I might have died as well, and I knew I was coming back later with a Tempered Sword. It's just that obviously I've wasted time going to Death Mountain twice and going to Pod twice, and it was just a massive disaster, this seed, really.
Yeah, the routing was absolutely horrible for this seed in general. Just what you had to do and the choice that you had to make between being really under-equipped for what you're going to want to have to accomplish. It was just... I'm not sure I could have done much better with an hour to stare at it, so...
Yeah, oneup made the choice to also go up to Death Mountain twice and grab a potion from Paradox Cave and potion glitch their way into pod. Which I was wanting to ask you, oneup, was that just to save some time collecting keys?
Yeah, well, that was a couple of different things. First of all, yeah, I should have done Paradox Cave before doing Hookshot Cave. Like, I was just planning my route and, grouped the things together and didn't even realize I had put, like, a Light World thing after a Dark World thing. So that's why I ended up going back into Paradox Cave the second time, unfortunately. And then, yeah, somehow I managed to miss when I was, like, planning my route, like, that pod was a crystal somehow. So, I thought like I was going into Pendant Pod to get my item out, and that was the only thing I needed from there. And, like I wasn't going to go down to the boss or anything. And then I realized as I was going that, oh yeah, Pod is going to be a crystal, and I'm going to have to come back and do that at some point. But thankfully, having the flute made that not too bad.
Definitely not too bad. It didn't help that all of the swords were locked behind the mirror.
Well,
Yeah,
almost all. I ended up getting the book to get my one sword from Desert Ledge.
Yeah, I think, watching the stream back, I think if you weren't, if you didn't have the hesitation over your route about whether to to double dip pod or not, I think this could have been an extremely close race.
Yeah, I think so. I made the mistake of thinking that the bow was locked behind a sword in Skull Woods. So, realizing now, I think what I've done is when I went to get the boots in the brewery, I should have gone up to get the bow in Skull Woods. Then I only have to do a single dip into Palace of Darkness, and I can beat it without a sword. That shouldn't be a problem. And then we can get the mirror, then we can get all of our swords and clear up all of the rest. We don't have an extra Death Mountain climb or Palace of Darkness visit. I think that was the best way.
That would have been good. I think the problem is that you would have had to do a save and quit first, since you didn't have the mirror at that point. So the fire rod was in the light world, so you would have grabbed your boots, saved and quit to Sank, got your fire rod, and then go back to Skullwoods.
Either way, 15 minutes is not nearly enough to plan these out with anything other than a vague sense of hope.
Exactly.
Without divulging too much of your strategy, were you guys kind of routing on the fly while you were running the seed, or did you keep the spoiler log mostly minimized while you're running?
Thankfully, this time I did manage to get most of the keys routed. Like, usually that can be a toss-up for me, is like when I go into like planning out what keys I'm gonna get when I'm in a dungeon, especially for like pod and TR. But I did have an extra minute or so at the end, and I was able to route the keys for both of those. Although, even like pod, I was still having to like fix some of my mistakes on the fly. So there was a little bit of that, but yeah.
Fair enough. And were either of you watching the restream or your opponent's stream?
I had a quick look towards the end. Basically, once all of the routing was done at the end, because I'm on a laptop with a single screen, so I can't have the stream up and all of my notes and the spoiler log. So I could only get the stream up on my screen a little bit once I have all the routing done and I don't have to do any kind of checking of keys and stuff on the fly. So not really, unfortunately. If I had another screen, I think I would.
Yeah, I had the restream up, but it was kind of hard to look at it while I was running. Like, I had the audio going, and every once in a while I would glance over just to see where Shady was and if I was ahead or behind and by how much. But even then, it was kind of hard to tell for most of the seed. Like, she was ahead anyway, so...
Yeah, that's actually the wonderful part about these spoiler logs, about the spoiler log races. Even though you guys get the logs beforehand, a lot of the ones that I've seen, at least, the routing has just been so drastically different because everyone prioritizes different things, and because everyone's kind of trying to figure out how to route things and what things are more important and less important. That it's actually just been a blast to watch, and everything's just kind of up in the air until you get to actually start clearing stuff, and then you kind of get a feel for who's ahead and who's not.
Yeah, it does seem fun that you can be quite creative with the routing, and that everyone does something different, because there just seems to be lots of different options. That does make it cool. If everyone did the exact same route in each seed, maybe it would be a little bit more boring.
Well, GG's to you both. You have game 2 tomorrow at, I believe, 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, that sounds right.
On a channel yet to be determined, so we'll be looking forward to that. Any final thoughts from either of you?
GG once again to shadyforce, and thanks to you guys for commentating and tracking and restreaming and everything.
Hammer, any last questions or comments?
I do not have any. Thanks for the race. It was a absolute blast to watch. And good luck to both of you for your next game, hopefully too.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for commenting again and everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thanks.
With that, I will remind you to follow the runners. I've posted their Twitch channels in the chat. And also follow my co-commentator, HammerBro120, and our tracker, Dimensive, which tracking for this, even though you get the spoiler log, items are coming in fast and furious. You never know what route the runners are going to take. It's a hectic thing. No other spoiler log action left tonight. However, there's lots of action on Speed Game. Taking a look at the schedule.
Yeah, the schedule for the next 2 days is absolutely slam packed, so there's going to be a lot of good stuff that you're not going to want to miss.
On Speed Gaming 2, there's a Soul Blazer randomizer going on. On the main Speed Gaming channel, there is an SMB3 randomizer, which I believe is in near the end of their bracket stage. The daily standard race is on Speed Gaming 5, and Kirby's Dream Land on Speed Gaming 6. Later tonight, there's Zelda 1 randomizer, as well as Super Metroid 80% weekly race. Lots of spoiler log action tomorrow. Be sure to check the schedule for details to find out when your favorite runners are running. Be sure to follow Speed Gaming and Speed Gaming 2 through 6. Lots of fantastic things coming up. And randomizers, 80% and 100% types of games, as well as maybe some games you've never heard of before. I believe Ultimate Decathlon is also going to be broadcast tomorrow, which is a fantastic tournament of where people learn 10 different speed games.
That sounds terrifying.
It is, but it's really cool too. A lot of them are quite shorter kind of games that only take, maybe 10 minutes to run, things 10 or 15 minutes to run, like Kirby's Dream Land. And yes, Scrivo will be doing a charity marathon for Autism Awareness Month on his channel, which is it's a great thing to do. Great thing to watch. But for that and for the whole Speed Gaming crew, I will wish you all a good night and good round out.